everyone. Welcome back to Tech Thursday. My name is Virginia, and I'm here today with
Liz. Hi, everybody.
As usual, that's right. So we are very glad to see all of you again. Do we want to tell them that this is a recording? This is a recording, is it?
It is. It's not live.
It is not live. So today we won't be able to answer your comments live, but we'll be happy to answer, and we'll keep track of it, answer any questions you might have about today's topic afterwards. So we're just pre-recording this today. We'll be live again next week, but yeah. So Liz, last week we talked about Google Docs. So you did a really good introduction on Docs, and we talk a bit about that it is part of a suite of applications that is available free to anyone who has a Google account. So we did Docs last week. So what are we doing today?
Well, today we will be talking about, or rather Virginia will be talking about.
I should know what we did today. But.
Sorry, Google Sheets. And Google Sheets is very much like the Microsoft product, Excel.
That's right. So just like with Docs, it is kind of just a version of Word. And as you probably saw from this video, and if you missed, you can go back to Facebook to look at the recording. It works exactly the same. So if you're familiar with Microsoft Word already, you kind of can see the similarities in Google Docs, and today you'll see the same thing. If you're familiar with Microsoft Excel, you'll be able to see that this works pretty much the same. So I'm thinking about going through it. So not so much for teaching people how to use Excel or how to use a spreadsheet kind of like application, but more just to show you how you will find your way around Google Sheets. So for people who have a little bit of basic knowledge of how a spreadsheet kind of program works. So that's kind of what my plan is today. And you will see that it is very similar to the other one. And like we keep saying, it is free. So it comes in handy for sure. So Liz, do you use any spreadsheets usually yourself?
Yeah, I do create the occasional Google Sheets. Yeah, it's really handy if I want to do something where I'm making a list, for example, and just like with any other spreadsheet, if I want to be able to make calculations or to sort the data. The really great thing about Google Sheets and the other Google Office productivity applications like Docs that I love is that I can access that sheet that I've created on any computer or any device as long as I have an internet connection. So I don't have to worry about saving out to a flash drive and bringing that with me to another computer, for example, or
emailing that yourself.
Exactly, yeah, or worrying, is this the latest version of my data? Yeah. Which one is it? It can get very confusing if you have multiple copies all over the place. So this helps to eliminate that confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then I think the whole idea that it also keeps a history of all the changes. So if you accidentally did something that you didn't like, it's very easy to revert back to a previous edition of your work. So which makes it good. It's like a safeguard for all of us who work on these things. So yeah. So should we get started on it and see how that goes?
Yeah, sounds great, Virginia.
All right. Okay. So I will share my screen now, and we'll go through Google Sheets together. And all right. All right. So now we're in Google Sheets, and you can see I can go to Google Sheets by doing sheets.google.com. That is a direct way to get into Google Sheets right away. But as Liz pointed out last week, if you're interested in looking at all the files that you have saved on Google, so you can go to Google Drive, and that way you can see all the documents, all the spreadsheets, all the slideshows that you have saved on there. And that
URL is drive.google.com. But this is a quick way to get to spreadsheets right away, which is what we're going to use today. And you can see here, I have a list of spreadsheet that the library has been using. And so you can see some of the Summer Reading Club registration right here. But what we're going to do today is we're going to show you around what Google Sheets is like so that you can see and compare it to what you may be more familiar with, which is Microsoft Excel. And I think you'll see that there are a lot of similarities, and if you are familiar with Excel, you will quickly get up to speed of what Google Sheet is like. But when you first get into this program, the first thing you will notice is that there is a template session up on the top. So if you would like to see some of the commonly used spreadsheets that you can build as a startup, you can, for example, do a to-do list, you can have like a monthly budget. So these are some ways to get you started right away. But what we're going to do today is we are going to go and open a blank sheet so that we can take a look and see what's going on in Google Sheets. So I'm going to click on that now. All right, so it's going to start me up a new Google Sheets. And of course, as we pointed out last week, the first thing that very often people ask right away when they are transitioning to one of these Google products is, how do I save? Well, you don't have to save yourself because it is all saved automatically for you. So Google does automatically saving every time you make a change. So for example, if I go up to the top where it's a untitled spreadsheet and I'm going to rename it, I'm going to click on that, give it a new name, and I'm going to say my spreadsheet, for example. And then the minute I press enter, of course, that's to commit what I type in so that the computer know I'm done. You can see it will show up as saving, and now it's saved to drive. And it will show me the last edit that I did was about a few seconds ago, which is what I just did, changing the name of the spreadsheet. So that is one very, very handy thing about Google Sheets. You don't have to remember to save things. If something happens to your computer and you're like, oh no, I lost all my work. Well, no, you don't. You will not lose your work because as long as you have an internet connection, it will automatically save the document and the spreadsheet for you. Of course, the other nice thing is that because all these files that you're going to be using and building, it's all saved on the cloud. You can have access to this document anywhere. So as long as you can sign into your Google account, if you're at home building this spreadsheet, you go to work, you can continue using it just by signing into your account and finding your files. You can also do it on the go. So you can also use this on your phone, for example, as long as you have the Google app, the Google Sheets app. I do have to say, building a spreadsheet on the phone is slightly complicated just because of the way you have to like scroll back and forth. You just don't get to see the big picture, so to speak. So it is a little more complicated, but totally doable in a pinch if you just need to update some data, for example. But that's one very handy thing about having using the Google applications is that everything's automatically saved. You can access it anywhere. The other thing, of course, is that you can also very easily share this spreadsheet with somebody instead of having to save it and then email it to somebody and then somebody get the document and you made a change and then you have to resave it and send them a new version of the document. You can share a link to this document with anybody. So you can see here up on the top right corner, there is the share button. So if I click on that, it will give me the option to share. So I can either put in some people's email addresses to share this file with them. Another option is to actually just give them a link. And you have different options of what kind of access you want to give people. So if I click on change to anyone with a link here, you'll see that right now the document is set to letting anyone with the link look at it. So they're just viewing it, right? But you can also make them a person that can comment on your document but not change your data, or you can make them edit so they can collaborate on the spreadsheet with you. So you can change the different kind of permission levels here. So I am going to just leave it as that and just click on done. And you can see the button has now changed. Now it is got a little like person icon and then just show you what the access level is right now for the spreadsheet that you have created. So that's another very handy thing about storing using Google Sheets and storing all your files on the cloud. So now let's take a look at the interface itself. You will see that it's quite similar to what Microsoft Excel looks like. On the top here, you got your menu buttons, and each of them, of course, have different options for you, which we'll go through some of them in a bit. There's the icons on the list here, and you will notice that it's probably a little more simpler than what Microsoft Excel has, but these are probably the most common icons, the most common things that you would do in a spreadsheet right out here, put out here for you. So it is, you don't have to go through the menus and find what the options are. So there's those ones right there, pretty a simplified form of it. Down at the bottom, you'll see that, just like in Microsoft Excel, we have like, this is a whole workbook here, but down at the bottom within the workbook, you can have different spreadsheets. So you can see right now, I have one of them right now. I can also, rename it, or change the color of it or make a copy of it. And by clicking on the plus sign on the bottom left corner here, I can add a new sheet here. So I can have multiple. For example, it could be one for January, one for February, one for March, for example, if you're doing like a list for different months. So there's different ways you can add spreadsheet to it, just like in Microsoft Excel. All right, so now, let's take a look at adding some data, because, when we're building a spreadsheet, we would like to have some data added. And of course, one of the usual example that I use whenever I'm teaching Excel in class is I usually do like a budget spreadsheet, because that kind of makes sense to most of us. So let's do a budget spreadsheet, very, very simple one here. So you can see, just like in Microsoft Excel, any cell that you click on, you can navigate through cells by just clicking through it. You can also use the arrow key on your keyboard. So going up, going down, left and right, for example. And you can, once you pick the cell that you want to put in your data, just click on it, and then you can start typing, just like in the other program. So let's do, put a title to our spreadsheet, My Budget. All right, so there it is. And then, of course, to let the computer know you're finished, you can press Enter to commit. Pressing Enter will take you to the cell underneath it. And then if you want to go to the cell to the right, then you press Tab on your keyboard. So just like in Excel. So I'm going to press Enter to go down here. Again, each of these little boxes that you see is your cell, and you can see all the columns are named with letters, and all the rows have numbers as their name. So very, very important when you're building a spreadsheet, of course, that you want to be able to refer to a cell by their name. And the name, of course, just like in Excel, if we're talking about the cell that has the word My Budget in is A1, right? You can see there's a little bit of highlighter. So if I click on one of these over here, you can see the F column and the free row is highlighted. So this is F3 as the cell. So very, very important when you are later on you doing calculations. You want to know what cell you want Excel to find the data so that you can do calculations on. All right, so My Budget has started with the title. So now let's put some more data in here. So I'm going to type in, for example, category for this here. And then I'm going to go into, so say expenses. Oh, let's just do budget first. How much money I budgeted for that category and how much I actually spent, right? So that's my three categories. And then I can type in different categories. So let's just do some quick things here. Grocery, eating out, entertainment. And I should also point it out, just like in Microsoft Excel, when you're typing, it's always trying to help you save you some time typing. So if I start typing the letter E, you can see it's trying to guess like, oh, maybe you're duplicating this. Maybe you're trying to like type in eating out again. And sometimes you do, for example, in some cases, right? But not in this one, but sometimes you do. So if you like what they suggested, you don't have to type out the whole thing, just press Enter, then that will commit the whole change again. But right now we're doing entertainment, so I'm going to do that here. And let's just say gas, for example. All right, so now we have the budget column. So this is how much you anticipated you're going to spend. So let's put down some random numbers here. All right. Well, these days we don't really have to use a lot of gas. But let's just say $100 here. And so now I have my expense. So the same kind of idea here. And note also that like I type in the $ in this case, but as you know, you can format the data according to what the type of data is. So in this case, and numbers obviously is sort of the obvious example. So in this case, if I just type in 1,000, right, I can use this handy little currency button on the top to format my number for me so that it will all turn into currency. So I can just click on that and it will add the $ and it will also add the decimal in it. And of course, all of this you can find under format and number, and there's all the options here for what type of number that you want the format to be. And this will help you make sure that when later on when you're doing calculations, everything is correct. Say, for example, if you have 2 different dates and you want to calculate how many days has passed, like how many days between the 2 dates, you want to make sure that your data is formatted properly so that it will do the proper calculation and it won't make any mistakes. So that's really important. But right now, so it's just a simple way you can type it in, or you can just use this, use the little changing format button right on the top here. Same here, you can see the decreasing decimal, increasing decimals, just like in Excel. So yeah, so this is like sort of my expense column. But the other thing, of course, also in Microsoft Excel and also in Google Sheets is the same kind of idea. Excel is always there, always trying to help you save you some typing. So in this case, if I want to, it does the autofill just like you would in Excel. And this is like one of my favorite things to show people, because every time people see it and they're like, oh, so nice. So for example, when I'm typing February, so maybe, for example, I want to list out my expenses, my actual expenses for each of the months. So I might have a column heading, say January, and then I might have February. And then you can see like where I'm going with this. This is probably going to be March, and then it's going to be April, and then it's going to be May, for example, right? But I don't want to have to type all of that, and you do not have to type all of that. So all you have to do is give Microsoft, sorry, I'm going to keep saying Excel, give Google Sheets a pattern for it to predict what it is that you are trying to type. So in this case, January, February, I'm going to highlight both the cell, and then I'm going to go to my autofill button. So it's in the same spot at the bottom right corner. You can see there's a little blue box. When you put your mouse over it, it will become a little cross. So what you do is click and then drag, and then what it will do is it will fill out the pattern for you, and in this case is the names of the months. So very, very handy. It does months, it does number patterns. So if I want to do 1 and then 2 and 3 and then keep going, so same idea. I usually just like to give like my spreadsheet program a hint to make sure that they kind of know where I'm getting at or where I'm going with this. So I'm just going to drag it down, and again it will fill out the number pattern for me. It also does work for like things like as long as it's some sort of predictable pattern. So I could even do just odd numbers, so 1, 3, 5, for example, right? And then I can like drag it out and then try to like see if Google Sheets can predict that. And yes, it can. It knows that I'm probably just need the other odd numbers here. So that's really, really nice way to save yourself some typing time. So here we are again. So we just want to point that out to make sure that you know that also exists in Google. So now I'm not going to spend time filling out my whole spreadsheet here, but what I'm going to do now is just to make it look a little nicer, because I'm going to have to be staring at this budget a long time. So let's format it a little bit. So that's another thing that you regularly would do. So what you would do, for example, is to highlight where you want to format, and you can change the font. Google, of course, comes with a bunch of different fonts available for you already. So you can change font, you can change color, right? If you want to change the background color for this whole row, you can highlight the whole row just like by clicking on the name of the row. And then I can change the background color to like this hideous blue color. You would never do this, but yeah, so something like that, right? So you can do all of that together. The other thing that, of course, Google Sheet also does is, like freezing rows and sorting rows and filtering things. So those are all the buttons that you can find right there. And then what you can do is, for example, like if you have a lot of data, right? And once you kind of like scrolling past the first couple row and you're like in here, you're like, wait, what is 50? What is 54? Like, what is the heading for it? You can't see it anymore because you have scrolled past it. So what I would always like to do is to freeze the categories, the heading, so that I know what I am looking at. So I can say, for example, highlight these 3 rows, and then I can go into view, like, because you're not changing the data, you're just changing how it looks like. So we're going to go to view, and then we're going to freeze up to whatever row. So let's do like up to that row here, right? So now I have like the first row, you can see there's a line here, right? Like, you can see a line right there. And then so what I've done is I freeze the top row, right? Just the title. That doesn't help me, but so you can highlight this row here, and then now you can go back to view and you can say, okay, well, I want to freeze up to this row, number 3. So you can see the line now has moved down. And so if I start going down my spreadsheet, you can see these 3 rows always stay on the top, so you can know what the headings are. So very, very handy this way. So that's some of the more formatting things. And of course, when you're building a spreadsheet, like the main goal is to get the computer to do some calculations for you. That's usually why you're building a spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do here is look at some of the functions, or what we call formulas, how to do calculations in Excel. So again, it's the similar idea as Microsoft Excel, and I said Excel again, even though I meant Google Sheets. How to do Google Sheets in calculations. So all calculations begin with an equal sign, just like in Microsoft Excel. And you can see the minute I type the equal sign, it is giving me some examples and some suggestions of what kind of formulas and what kind of calculations I am looking to do. And you can see one of the top one here, the top 2 will be finding the sum, so getting a total, or finding the average, right? So you can see there's 2 options here. And as I hover my mouse through these 2 options, you can see there's an orange box that has appeared up there because it's highlighting the cells that it is going to use to do that total. So in this case, it's going to total up all the numbers from B4 to B8, which is exactly what I want. So all I have to do, if I like the suggestion, is just to click on the suggestion here. And then what it would do is to automatically fill that whole formula in for me. I don't have to type anything. And not only that, in Google Sheets, it also gives you a prediction, or preview, I should say, of what the answer is, right? So that's kind of nice. I can see that it's going to give me 1,850 as my total. So if I like what I see, all I have to do, because I'm already at the end of my formula, I just have to press enter to commit, and that is my answer right there. Very, very handy. So the more the formulas that you need in the world is all hiding under this button right on the top, the last button on the ribbon here. And if I click on this little arrow, it will give me all the functions. So you can see all of them here. In each of these categories, there are lots of different choices, and you notice a lot of them are very similar to what you might be familiar with if you use Excel. And do not ask me what all of these do, because I don't know, but you can explore what they do. The nice thing about it is that Google always have a really good help pages that will show you what each function does, and also what gives you some examples of what they do and what is required in your calculation. What do you have to put in to complete this function? But the top 5 here are the most common one, or they think is the most common one. It's the same ones that I think show up in Excel. So getting the total, which is what we did earlier, getting the average. Count is an interesting one. Counts basically is going to look at through a whole row of cells. So for example, I have a whole bunch of things here, and I'm gonna, put in some numbers, 9 and then 6, for example, right? So what I want to do is to find out in these 5 cells, I want to know how many of them have a number, how many of them have a value, which is a number in it, right? So that's what the count function does. So if I want to put my answer here, begin with an equal sign. Again, I'm going to say count. As you can see, I'm typing. It was going to give me all the functions that begin with the letter C. So you can keep typing, and then I got count here. So what you can do is once you find a good one, you can click on it, right? And then it will give me an example of what I need to put in. So it tells me what I need some values, and it gives me an example of what that means. And then it gives you an explanation of what count does. Basically, it's like how many of these cells contain a number. That's basically what these fancy words mean. And not only that, it gives me a link to go to the help pages to see more examples and to get a more detailed explanation. So that's what this does. So if I going to give them a set of value here and then close the parentheses off, and you can see already it's giving me the answer that this calculation, this function is going to give me answer 4, because in these 5 cells, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 cells that contain a number. That's what this count function does. All right, so that's one example. Or maybe if I get rid of the total here, I want to know out of all the budgeted items, which is the category that is the biggest, right? So that is the max and min that we have here. So maximum number, minimum number. So among these 5 numbers, which is the biggest, basically. So again, same idea, equal sign to start the calculation, start typing max, and it's already giving me max. And then I can type in the whole thing if you don't want to do the highlight, right? Like you can say B4, and B8, right? And then close the parentheses, and you can see here it's telling me that $1,000 is the biggest number among these 5 values, and that is correct. So you can see, like, with 5 numbers, you can probably see it's 1,000, but if you can imagine, if you have like a 1,000 rows of numbers in it and you want to find what is the biggest, this is a very, very handy function. So this is what you can use in Google Sheets. Again, very, very much similar to what Excel does. All right. So this is basically a very, very basic overview. It's not, like I said earlier, it's not really to teach you how to use a spreadsheet. We do have courses like that. We usually do at the library, and it's always very fun to do. So if you're interested, leave us a comment, let us know that might be something that you're interested in, and we'll look into how we can do it, how we can deliver that program virtually to you. But this is just a quick overview of what Google Sheets does, and I hope you can see that it's quite similar to Microsoft Excel, and it's very, very usable. The nice thing about it is that as we pointed out last week, not everybody has a pay like a version of Microsoft Office. So Google Sheet is a free version for you to do. And what you can do is, once you've created a spreadsheet in Google Sheets, which is what we did just now, you can actually save it out and download it as an Excel file. So when you click on File here, one of the options when you say download is to download it as a PDF, for example, or you can download it as an Excel file. So it will save it as an Excel file, and then once you got that, you can send it to other people, and they will think that you have Excel, right? Because it is saved as an Excel file. So that is something very, very handy to do. So I would suggest checking out Google Sheets if you are looking into making your own spreadsheets, maybe making some budget, making some to-do lists. This is a very, very handy program to have. So that, I think, is all we will talk about today in Google Sheets. And you can see 2 minutes ago I make the last edits, so it is automatically saving it for me. You can see I do not have to click save ever in my program. So that is great. I guess the other thing I also wanted to point out, one more thing before we go, is that Google Sheets is actually also tied to Google Forms. So if you are looking to have a spreadsheet as your background collecting data, but you do not want people to come in your spreadsheet and start randomly adding number, because maybe this is like not everybody is used to typing in the Google Sheets or knowing how a spreadsheet works, but you wanted to have a very user-friendly way for them to enter information. Well, in Google, you can go to Tools and actually create a form to go with this spreadsheet. Or you can do it the other way around, create the form first and then attach it to a Google Sheet so that you can actually collect data, and then you can manipulate your data and make charts and present them in whatever way you want. But meanwhile, on the other hand, the people who are entering the information, have a very nice form, very user-friendly form for them to put in the information so they don't have to mess with your spreadsheet. So that is definitely something you would want to do if you have a lot of different people entering data and you think this might make their life easier, because they're basically answering a form, just like answering questions. So they can handle that. So that's something that you might want to look at. The other thing I will also point out is that there are other people who have built add-ons to Google Sheets. So Google Sheet actually can do quite a lot. Like, as you explore it, you'll find that you can do most of the things that you probably need. However, if you're looking for a specific feature and you're like, I don't see it in Google Sheet, you search the help pages and they're like, this doesn't seem to exist. Well, chances are someone out there may have built an add-on. And so you can actually search for these add-ons and then you can add additional functionality to your Google Sheet. So that's also very handy to have. So this is a quick introduction to Google Sheets. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. We'll be back next week. So we have one more thing in Google that we want to show you. We did Google Docs, we did Google Spreadsheet today. Next week, we're going to show you Google Slides, which is basically the equivalent of Microsoft PowerPoint. So we can show you how you can make a slideshow on Google. So that is next week. Until then, have a great week. I hope you will leave us any comments, if you have any questions, if you have any requests for any tech topic that you're interested in, please let us know. We'll love to get some suggestions and what kind of topics that you think would be useful to you, that we can cover in like about half an hour. And if you need help with anything, we also do tech help on our Zoom. Over Zoom, just makes it a little easier if we can see your screen and you can share your screen just like how we're doing it right now. So you can see what we're doing and we can see what you're doing. Makes it a little easier to help when it comes to like doing tech help. So if you have any questions, that you have some questions like say using ebooks, or you have some questions about Google Sheets, please do set up an appointment. We'll be happy to meet with you to answer any tech questions you have. So we'll see you next week for Google Slides, and have a great weekend.